Hey everyone, welcome to Satisfactory News. Satisfactory is often hailed as a shining example of what good game design is, but not everyone feels that way about every feature, and the game has often added or changed features based on overwhelming community feedback. But you can still find common complaints about certain features, whether players think they're too weak, too strong, or just not done right. So in this video, I'm going to take a look at some of the most controversial features of the game that the community just can't seem to agree on, cover the issues people have with them, and then discuss why these features might actually be good game design, despite the disagreements. But this isn't just my opinion, because I've roped in Emmet Burke, the game director of Satisfactory, to help explain some of these choices from the perspective of the people who actually worked on the game.
I am Emmet Burke, and I'm the game director of Satisfactory. I was in the AR/VR space for a while because I come from Ireland and there wasn't a lot of games industry stuff. There was a lot of augmented reality and virtual reality startups in 2015, 16. So I worked there for a while before creating my own indie studio. And then joined a German studio called Clan Games, which is making a life simulation MMO game. And they have quite a complex production system in that too, which was also influenced by Satisfactory. And so I knew Satisfactory inside out, and it's also a game I just genuinely enjoy playing. And my hobbies are making video games, because in my spare time I still do that. I have my own pixel art game that I'm working on too, and music, if that wasn't super obvious. Look, let me do the drum spin thing and just fuck it up. Oh no, I didn't. Nice. Never mind.
Fluid train cars. One long-time complaint from players is that the fluid train cars are bad. They only hold about half the amount that a freight train car could hold if you chose to package that same amount of liquid. Let's do some quick train nerdery. In real life, a freight car has about 5,000 to 7,000 cubic feet of volume. That's about 37,000 to 52,000 gallons. A fluid tanker car can vary wildly in volume depending on the needs, but the most common tank car in the United States is the DOT-111, which can hold 34,500 gallons. So why does the fluid train car in Satisfactory absolutely suck, if an equivalent car could hold a lot more in real life? Well, that's just the thing. I don't think that they suck necessarily. They are designed the way they are to present players with two distinct options. You can use a fluid train, which will require more train cars and a larger train station. Or you can set up an additional production line that packages and unpackages those fluids, thus allowing you to have a smaller train at the cost of a little bit of factory infrastructure. Do you know why the fluid train car holds so little? It's a common complaint people have.
I knew that was going to be a question as well. The fluid train car should have a lower inventory than the normal one, because the idea is that if you package fluid, the packager is more relevant then, because if you package fluids, you can carry more of them packaged than you could if they were just raw, loose. But why the exact numbers are there, I do not know.
A lot of players will actually tell you that packaging is the ideal solution, despite this being a major extra step. This is partly because of the fluid system, which is a whole other issue that people have a problem with that I won't be covering in this video. But if you want to check out my complete fluids guide so you can fix your fluid problems for good, that'll be linked up in the cards in the top of this video right now. In reality, this choice between the two types of train cars lets players pick which works best for them. Space is plentiful and Satisfactory, so with a little bit of careful planning, creating larger trains for fluids wouldn't be that difficult. Meanwhile, when you want to package fluids, you need to have plastic readily available or be able to dedicate a train car to moving plastic or packages. So the quote-unquote better option requires a lot more upfront work. But you might thank yourself later. In the end, both options do require some level of planning, and I don't think you're wrong for picking one over the other. You should pick the one that makes the most sense for your playstyle and your current factory setup. I think it's always a game design success when players have multiple options that end up with basically the same result. Both solutions that I presented here will work. If the numbers aren't super critical, maybe you're fine with just setting up a fluid train car, and that's that. If the numbers are really important and you want to keep track of them, maybe you'll want to package the fluids so that you have a clear idea of how much you're moving. This is also nice because the first option may appeal to a player who just wants to throw something together, and the second option may appeal to the player who likes to track their numbers and create the perfect system and doesn't mind spending more time up front. Now, I wrote this video before all the stuff about 1.2 came out, so I made sure to ask Emmet about the fluid trucks that have been teased in 1.2 and how that relates to the fluid train cars. Has there been any discussion around making the fluid train car better, and is the fluid truck a response to that?
The fluid truck isn't a response to it. This was a separate thing we decided to do. I would say the fluid truck has brought to light the balancing choices in the train a little bit more, for sure. Like, I'm definitely thinking about that more. But no, the fluid truck is sort of, it's separated. I won't give away too much, but it's definitely like a separate choice.
Dimensional Depot. The Dimensional Depot is a pretty awesome addition to Satisfactory that came out in 1.0. And I think it's great game design in a lot of ways, despite some initial concerns that a lot of players, myself included, felt. What's great about it is that it solves one of the biggest pain points of the game without negatively affecting the goals and vision of the game. That being, it reduces the number of times you have to run in between your construction project and your storage, since your materials will always be passively refilling and accessible from your inventory. That doesn't affect gameplay in a negative way, since running back and forth is not a core aspect of the game. That's not what the game is about. Although some might argue that resource management or inventory management might be a core aspect of the game.
It's very easy to fill up your inventory, even though we're relatively generous with slots. And just having that easy access to, like, okay, I have to build like some foundations or something, and I have no concrete with me. It's like, yeah, that's essentially it. Just always, you're not really going to get trapped and have to like run all the way back to your base to pick up like a couple of stacks of concrete or something, or iron bars or iron plates.
On the same token, it also makes exploring easier, as you can upload items as you explore, so you can keep your inventory clear and make it so that you won't lose some of those critical items if you die. Plus, you'll have access to materials while exploring if you need to build something or unlock a drop pod. Now that might all sound great, but not every player agrees. A lot of players argue that the Dimensional Depot uploads too slow, doesn't hold enough stacks, and is difficult to scroll through in your inventory. And these feelings persist even after maximizing the research tree. Some players even want significant improvements. I've heard some who wish the depot could also output items, essentially using it as a teleporter for production lines. I think for a lot of reasonable players, this crosses an obvious line from convenient to overpowered. It then overrides one of the main points of the game, which is figuring out logistics and transportation. Because
then why would you ever get teleporters or portals? Yeah, because that's sort of it, I guess. Like, you can also unlock the Dimensional Depot pretty early in the game. Like, where portals, you actually do have like production up to like this final reward of like, you can now teleport items. Dimensional Depots with the right amount of like exploration can be unlocked very early, realistically. I mean, you would make like trucks, tractors, drones, and trains irrelevant straight away.
Now, on the other side of the coin, there's a lot of players who see the Dimensional Depot as too strong and that it shouldn't be in the game at all. It undermines certain logistical choices and makes the movement of items trivial as it is, even without instant transportation. To some people, it feels like cheating altogether. But what makes the Dimensional Depot great, other than the obvious advantages to gameplay, is that it adds a lot of interesting decision points, which I think is always good for game design. The research tree in the MAM allows you to upgrade the upload speed and stack size in several different tiers, but there are plenty of ways to approach this. You can go deep on upload speed, go deep on stack size, upgrade both alongside each other, or you can ignore the research altogether and maximize the number of Mercer spheres available for making more dimensional depots. You can really use this tool however you like, or not at all. It's totally optional. And especially in the early game when you haven't discovered all of the Mercer spheres, these upgrade decisions can have a big impact on your gameplay because it'll impact how many depots you can make.
It's a limited resource, but you can always dismantle and get that resource back. It's not spent, so you can make choices on how you want to use that. There should still be enough available to make a dimensional depot for every part you would want to make in the game, realistically. And the Dimensional Depot also does have like limited stack sizes, so there's only so much you would be able to put in it.
The main takeaway here is that options are good. The Dimensional Depot is not only a totally optional feature, but I think as it stands now, it offers a lot of interesting side decisions and resource management by forcing you to ration one of the game's few truly limited resources. And it also encourages exploration, because if you want to make use of it, you have to go exploring for Mercer Spheres. And that adds variety to the gameplay that I think is great.
It forces players to explore other ways to play the game still, which is important. It's a very nice to have thing, I think, but it's not something you completely depend on for your play.
No random nodes. I've talked plenty of times before about how much I appreciate the hand-designed map in Satisfactory, but there are plenty of people that complain that there isn't an option to randomize the nodes. I don't disagree that this would be fun as an option, but there's a good reason that the map is set up the way it is. Certain spots on the map are better or worse for different types of factories. For example, oil is clustered up in certain areas, bauxite only exists in a thin band across the center of the map, and uranium is specifically placed in difficult to reach locations. These are all highly intentional balancing choices that are based on distance from starting locations, and they consider natural obstacles and things like that. It comes with the guarantee that as you progress through the game, it becomes easier and easier to ignore the fact that these locations are hard to get to and just transport items wherever you need them. What seems daunting at first will seem downright reasonable as you progress through the game.
At the moment, there's very clear progression. Like say if you start in grass fields, you will start inevitably beside iron and copper and limestone. So like being like to set up your hub and get through the onboarding and deal with like anything in tier 1, you're immediately set up for that. Then when you unlock the coal generators, you're kind of encouraged like, okay, I need to move a little bit further in order to get coal. And then when you start to look for like crude oil and stuff, you have to move even further. And it's essentially that like we start you off in a very small like sphere or circle, and then we widen it and we widen it. Like as you progress through the tiers, your world should start to open up more and more, and then you end up in like tiers 7, 8, 9, and you're like, okay, I have to, like there is so much I need to do. I need to create like this enormous, very specific factory, and then you end up on like specifically looking around the map, like, okay, where's like the best concentration of certain resources that might help me do this thing.
And this is all intrinsically tied to the starting locations. Each starting location has certain advantages and disadvantages, but they all have easily accessible basic materials, like iron, copper, and limestone. You always have to go far afield to find the more rare materials. If you used random nodes and got a spawn near Caterium, bauxite, and oil right away, that takes away some of the challenge that's built into those tiers of the game, and it makes the early game more challenging to get started because you might be lacking those basic materials, as well as the tools to access wherever they may have spawned. It's not just about setting up complex production lines, it's about exploring the world and overcoming physical obstacles like high cliffs and poison rocks. If every starting area had every material, you'd really have no reason to explore, and this is, in part, an exploration game. Why is the Satisfactory map handmade? Why not just make it procedurally generated?
Because it's so pretty. I mean, the decision came very early on to make it a handcrafted map. Procedural could work, but you don't get the customized beauty and interesting points that you would from the handcrafted map. Like everything is so intentional and smart. There's so many like hidden caves and secrets and stuff. I think procedural works well in a lot of games, but Satisfactory has so many just like incredible vistas and things, just like absolute perfect beauty spots. I think that was more like the intention at the start anyway. Like I think obviously procedural could work in some version of Satisfactory, but the world would feel more muted than it does right now.
Obviously, there's a lot of people that want randomized nodes. Is that something that would fit naturally into a alternate game mode, or does randomized nodes go too much against the vision and goals of the game to make that really much of a possibility?
It's a weird one because, yeah, like balancing those things is very difficult. Like the game is balanced in a pretty specific way, so that's kind of challenging. You could end up I don't know, starting with just like 3 SAM nodes around you and you're some like poor new player and you're just like, what is that? Or start with 3 uranium nodes even around you and you're just like, this is terrible. Yeah, it's it could work, but it's very like, this is not, we have no idea how this experience is going to go now. If you do this, like, good luck, because it's like, there's no possible way. There's hundreds of nodes on the map. Like, there's no way we could test every scenario and make sure that like it just, everything is even possible to complete. So, it's cool. It's a big design challenge though, I'll say.
Blueprints. How big is big enough for the blueprint designer? That's something that Satisfactory players just can't seem to agree on. Blueprints didn't even exist in the game for quite a long time, and players kept asking for them since other games like Factorio had them. A reasonable request. But despite 3 different sizes available for the blueprint designer, some players still want more. After all, not every building fits into the biggest blueprint designer.
I specifically remember Bits talking about, like, this was a stream before anything was released, and he was speculating that there could be a Mark III, and his logic was that the quantum encoder would have to fit into it.
Yeah.
And we were all like, internally, we're like, he's right that there will be a Mark III, but he's wrong about the quantum encoder part. How often would you use the blueprint designer with a quantum encoder? Realistically, I understand the logic behind it, where like the blueprint designer really shines with like creating roads or creating like manifold setups, like these type of more intricate designs. Usually for like particle accelerators or quantum encoders, you probably aren't going to throw a bunch of them in a blueprint designer. Most likely you would create something that would hook onto them, like some sort of manifold system, and you would just attach it directly.
The larger that blueprints are able to be, the less actual building players have to do. And maybe for some people, that's a good thing. Not everyone wants the game to be so repetitive. But it would also be boring and overpowered if you could just spam down a ton of massive factories in an instant. There is a certain amount of time that the developers would like you to spend playing this game, and things are designed around that.
You could make them bigger and bigger. Like, it's relatively easy to make the blueprint designer larger, honestly. But it's like, you then start to remove any restrictions you're putting on yourself, and that's a very different experience. You're almost removing the fun from yourself, like the challenge. We can't do the amount of quality of life that we're just going to remove every challenge in the game. Like, we still want there to be clear progression. Like, we want to alleviate some of the issues here and there, but we don't want to like design the fun out of our own game. And I think that's where like that kind of like blueprint designer choices come from, like where we could make bigger and bigger versions, but then people would be making one factory ever and then copying and paste it everywhere. And it's like, yeah, you've now just completed the game in 20 hours instead of 120. Like, whoops.
Players have a tendency to optimize the fun out of games if given the option, so I think it makes sense for the blueprint designer to be limited. I also think it's great that the devs have continued to improve the feature with things like automatic belt and pipe connections. I think these upsides mitigate the downsides of having a limited size designer, and overall the feature strikes a balance between reducing boring and repetitive game actions and keeping building a core part of the experience. I really feel like they've nailed it with these 3 different sizes. Overall pacing. Each tier of Satisfactory gets progressively harder. They demand more resources, they force you to seek out new materials, and they just end up taking a lot of time. That is certainly not out of the ordinary for games. As you progress, things get a bit harder and a bit more grindy. But what people take issue with in Satisfactory is that kind of the second half of the tiers get exponentially more difficult. They say that the time it takes to accomplish these goals is simply too much, and the tasks involved are too tedious. Yet at the same time, there are many players who couldn't care less, because this is a game that people love to sink hundreds of hours into. It is a badge of honor.
The way I kind of interpret it is like the community sort of have a badge of pride of like, oh, like 500 hours, come on, rookie numbers. Like, people have put some crazy, amazing hours into this game, honestly.
Sure, you can kind of speed through the game, but most players love making big production lines and taking the time to make things run efficiently and even to look nice. The pace of the game is too slow for some and just the right amount of grind for others. It's this divide in the community that leads to such a wide variety of playstyles and preferences. From screenshots of messy built spaghetti in the green fields to impossibly large structures that boggle the mind, Satisfactory appeals to all types of players, both casual and serious. Contrast this with an Elden Ring or Dark Souls type of game that appeals to hardcore gamers, and games like The Sims or EA Sports games that are meant to appeal to people who might not want to play other fast-paced games. It's good to have a variety of types of games available, and it's even better that Satisfactory can be both of those things.
Because Satisfactory is also sort of a cozy game, like there's no pressure that like you have to do these things now. And I see this feedback on Reddit a lot when people kind of come in and they feel a bit overwhelmed. And then the feedback is always like, take it at your own pace. You don't have to do this enormous factory right now. You don't have to make it look as good as some of the other factories on Reddit do. You take it at your own pace, but you also decide what projects you want to work on at what time. Like if you're intimidated by the idea of doing a supercomputer factory now, just go and explore for a little while, or go set up, like do some like small power infrastructure things, or do like, look at the map tree, look at what you haven't unlocked and like do a push there.
I think Satisfactory's design in terms of pacing and just overall gameplay is friendly for a variety of players with different skill levels, available free time, and level of creativity. There's just something about it that works. The game asks for a hell of a lot sometimes, but it demands absolutely nothing. You can simply ignore what you want, play at whatever pace you feel like, and do things as you please. Or you can ignore the goals of the game entirely and spawn in infinite materials to work on whatever it is you feel like making. It combines the freedom and flexibility of a game like Minecraft with the structure of a more linear game to great success.
I don't think it was the intention from the start to become what it is now. There was like a whole bunch of different like concepts of like, what will the next game be after Goat Sim? A couple of like the team came together and they started working on this factory simulation game. And like the people started to find like there's a lot of satisfaction in, that was not meant to be a pun, I'm sorry, but there's a lot of satisfaction in just like this, you know, like connecting your like production buildings to like your miners and just getting like these ratios like really nice. And I know it did start at that, like it was meant to focus in on the like the factory. I think the rest came pretty organically. That's kind of the way Coffee Stain works. Like they do what feels most fun and what feels nicest for a game. And you really see that shine through in a game like this, where they're like, yeah, but like an open world is really pretty. And like they had some really good artists and good level design. Like, oh, like we can do some really cool things here with the world as well. And then like with when a lot of like build pieces got added, it was like, we can see the communities making some pretty interesting things. Let's like allow that, let's enable that a little bit more. I'm semi-plugging another game now, but like the RV There Yet team are like some of the people who also worked on Satisfactory. And you can see the same type of philosophy there, like they just put stuff together that feels the most fun and what their team is the most passionate about. And then that passion shines through to a good game, and then people enjoy the game and buy the game because it's like a game made by game devs that are really passionate about what they're doing.
So, despite Satisfactory being a great game, a game of the year if you will, it's clear that the community is still a bit divided over certain aspects of it. And this isn't a bad thing. It actually shows that the player base is passionate about this game and always wants it to be better. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with healthy discussion. The fact that we're discussing these design choices means that they're impactful and meaningful. Plus, the devs are only human and they can make mistakes just like anyone. It's a sign of how good they are at making this game that they listen to feedback from the community and often implement it. If the devs weren't as receptive to this community, Satisfactory would definitely not be the game that it is today. If you have strong feelings around any aspect of game design in Satisfactory, let me know in the comments below, and go ahead and check out one of the other videos on your screen right now. And I just want to thank Emmet one more time for joining me for this video and contributing his thoughts and opinions. And if you want more of Emmet in your life, subscribe, because next week I'll be uploading an interview where we talked more about Satisfactory and game design, as well as stuff in his personal life, like hobbies and travel.